You know that moment when you catch your husband tenderly stroking another woman's face in a dimly lit Italian restaurant, and your first thought isn't heartbreak, but, wow, I'm paying for this dinner too. Yeah, welcome to my Tuesday. There I was, circling the parking lot of Marcello's, that overpriced Italian place where they charge $28 for pasta you could drunkenly make at 2 a.m., when I spotted it. My husband's Tesla. The one with the vanity plate that reads Top Guy because apparently humility died somewhere around his third promotion. I should have kept driving, should have gone to Target, bought some throw pillows I didn't need, and pretended I never saw anything. But no. My therapist says I have self-destructive curiosity. I call it refusing to be the idiot who doesn't know she's the idiot. I'm Luna, by the way. 38 years old, marketing director at a tech startup, and apparently the star of a reality show I never auditioned for. 12 years married to Jasper Mitchell. That's 12 years of thinking I had a solid marriage, 2 beautiful kids, and a husband who worked late because he was dedicated to his career. Spoiler alert, he was dedicated all right, just not to anything I was part of. So I walked into Marcello's in my yoga pants, the ones with the coffee stain from Monday that I'd given up trying to remove, looking like every suburban mom who'd just done the school pickup run. My hair was in a messy bun that wasn't the cute kind, more like the I haven't looked in a mirror since 7 a.m. wall kind. And there he was, Jasper, 41, 6 feet tall, salt and pepper hair that he spent way too much money maintaining, wearing the Tom Ford suit I'd bought him for Christmas, sitting across from a blonde woman who looked like she shopped exclusively at Lululemon and pronounced croissant with a French accent at Starbucks. He was gazing at her like she'd just discovered the cure for male pattern baldness, his hand reaching across the table to gently stroke her cheek. The cheek stroking. That's what got me. Because Jasper hadn't touched my face like that I couldn't even remember. When was the last time he'd looked at me like I was something precious instead of another item on his to-do list, sandwiched between pick up dry cleaning and remember to respond to work emails? I stood there, partially hidden behind a decorative olive tree, because Marcello's is nothing if not committed to their Italian garden aesthetic, and did what any modern woman would do. I pulled out my iPhone and started filming. Every touch, every smile, every intimate laugh. I was basically producing a low-budget episode of Dateline, except the only person who was going to die was my marriage. And then she turned her head slightly, and I saw her profile. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Oakley freaking Peterson, the ex-fiancé, the one he'd been engaged to before me, the one he said he'd ended things with amicably 10 years ago because they wanted different things in life, the one whose name I hadn't heard in years because she was supposedly ancient history, a closed chapter, a footnote in the story of how Jasper and I met. Except, here's the thing about closed chapters. Sometimes somebody rips the book back open and sets fire to your entire library. I watched them for another 3 minutes. 3 minutes of him holding her hand. 3 minutes of her laughing at something he said. Probably the same jokes he used to tell me when we first started dating. 3 minutes of my life rearranging itself from solid marriage with minor issues to complete dumpster fire. Then I left. Didn't confront them. Didn't make a scene. Just walked out of that restaurant, got in my sensible Honda CR-V, because while Jasper drove a Tesla, I was apparently the practical one, and sat in the parking lot shaking. Not crying. Shaking. Because underneath the shock and the betrayal and the humiliation, there was something else brewing. Something that felt a lot like rage mixed with curiosity, mixed with that particular brand of determination you only get when someone treats you like you're too stupid to notice they're destroying your life. I drove home to our 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, the house I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago, the one with the white picket fence that I'd literally painted myself one summer. Our kids were at my sister's house for a sleepover. Leo, age 10, and Ruby, age 7. Beautiful, oblivious children who thought their biggest problem was whether they'd get screen time before bed. I poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive kind that Jasper always said we should save for special occasions, which apparently meant never, and I sat at our kitchen island with my phone, and I started investigating. See, Here's what 12 years of marriage teaches you. You know your husband's passwords, all of them. Because at some point in year 3, when you're building a life together and buying a house and having babies, you stop keeping secrets. You share phone codes and laptop passwords and email access because you're a team. Except when one team member is playing an entirely different game. I opened Jasper's laptop, the one he'd left on the kitchen counter that morning when he'd rushed out, late for an important early meeting. First stop, email. I searched for Oakley. 73 emails. 73 emails. Dating back 8 months. My hands were trembling as I clicked on the first one. It was from last September, subject line. Good to hear from you. Casual. Friendly. Hey, so crazy running into you at the conference in Seattle. We should grab coffee and catch up properly. The second email, a week later. Coffee was great. Forgot how easy it is to talk to you. By October, they were meeting for lunch. By November, dinner. By December, the emails got shorter and the time between them got longer. Because I realized with growing horror, they'd moved to texting. I grabbed Jasper's iPad, synced to his phone, thank you Apple ecosystem, and opened his messages. And there it was. Months and months of messages. Good morning texts, good night texts, inside jokes, photos, plans. And then, from 3 weeks ago, a message that made my blood run cold. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Just a few more months and everything will be different. Just a few more months. I looked around our kitchen, at the family photos on the walls, at the kids' artwork magnetically attached to the fridge, at the calendar with soccer practices and dental appointments, and my mother's birthday circled in red. I thought about the last 12 years, the pregnancy scares and the pregnancy joys, the late-night feedings and the first days of school, the fights about money and intimacy and whose turn it was to deal with Leo's homework meltdowns. The good times, too. The vacations, the anniversaries, the quiet Sunday mornings drinking coffee while the kids watched cartoons. All of it. Every single moment. Happening while my husband was planning his exit strategy. I kept digging. Turns out Jasper hadn't just been reconnecting with his ex. He'd been building a life with her. A secret life. Funded by, wait for it, my inheritance money. Last year, when my grandmother died and left me $250,000, Jasper had convinced me to invest it in his brilliant new business venture. A consulting firm, he said. Low risk, high reward. We'd be set for the kids' college funds, maybe even retire early. I'd trusted him, signed the papers, handed over the money. The consulting firm was real, technically. Mitchell & Peterson Solutions. I'd never questioned the Peterson part. Figured it was some business partner I'd never met. Turns out, I'd met her. 12 years ago, when Jasper had introduced me to all his friends at his 30th birthday party and casually mentioned, "Oh, and this is Oakley, an old friend." An old friend who was now co-owner of a company built with my money. I poured another glass of wine. Screw saving it for special occasions, this definitely qualified, and kept reading. Financial documents, bank statements, email receipts, the weekend work trips to San Francisco, romantic getaways with Oakley, the conferences in Austin and Denver, more getaways, that investment opportunity that required a separate checking account for cleaner bookkeeping, the account that was paying for Oakley's 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle, the one with the waterfront view and the monthly rent that cost more than most people's mortgages. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective on complete and total betrayal. I found an email from 3 months ago, from Oakley to Jasper. Subject line, baby. I clicked it with my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Just left Dr. Morrison's office, it's confirmed. We're having a baby. Due in March. I can't believe this is finally happening for us. I know the timing isn't perfect yet, but the rest of the email was full of exclamation points and talk about nursery colors and baby names and our fresh start. Oakley was pregnant, 5 months pregnant, if the March due date was accurate. And Jasper was planning to be a father. Again. With her. While still living with me and our children and pretending everything was normal. I sat there in my kitchen, in my house, drinking my wine. And laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else do you do when you realize your entire life has been an elaborate performance and you've been the only one who didn't know you were acting? Then I did what any intelligent woman with access to joint bank accounts, 12 years of marriage under her belt, and a really, really good lawyer on speed dial would do. I started planning. Because if Jasper thought he could destroy my life while I passively watched, he clearly didn't know who he'd married. The gloves were off. The rules had changed. And I was about to show him exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who's got nothing left to lose except her dignity. And honey, I was getting that back with interest. The next morning, I woke up with a wine headache and a mission. Jasper had texted me at midnight, because of course he had, saying he'd be working late again tonight and might just crash at the office. The office? Right. I'm sure Oakley's apartment had a very comfortable office. I responded with a thumbs-up emoji, because that's what good wives do, apparently. We give thumbs-up emojis to our lying husbands while we plot their downfall. I dropped the kids at school, Leo complaining about his math homework, Ruby chattering about her friend's new puppy, and drove straight to downtown Portland, to the law offices of Patricia Caldwell, the most aggressive divorce attorney in the state. I'd found her name in one of those top 10 lawyers who will destroy your ex articles online. She had a 5-star rating and reviews that said things like, "She got me everything plus his dignity," and "My ex-husband now lives in his mother's basement." Perfect. Patricia's office was in one of those glass buildings that screamed expensive, and "You're about to spend a lot of money, but it'll be worth it." She was 50-something, sharp suit wearing, with the kind of haircut that costs $300 and says, "I win cases before breakfast." "So," she said, after I'd laid out the entire sordid story, the affair, the secret business, the pregnancy, the inheritance theft. "Your husband is having an affair with his ex-fiancée, used your inheritance money to fund their love nest and fake business, and she's currently pregnant with his child. Did I miss anything? Oh, and he's planning to divorce me right after I sign refinancing papers that would put our house entirely in his name." Patricia smiled. It was the kind of smile a shark makes before it bites. "I like you already. When can you get me copies of everything?" I pulled out a flash drive. Already done. Emails, text messages, bank statements, business documents, photos, videos. 8 months of evidence. She plugged it into her computer and started scrolling. Her smile got wider. "Mrs. Mitchell. Luna. Your husband is an idiot. He left a paper trail that a kindergartner could follow. Joint accounts used for personal expenses with another woman. Business expenses that are clearly personal. Text messages discussing hiding assets. This isn't just divorce material. This could be fraud. How fast can we move? How fast do you want to move?" "Yesterday." She laughed. "I can file by end of week. But here's what we're going to do first. We're going to freeze every joint account. We're going to get injunctions preventing him from accessing or moving any marital assets. We're going to hire a forensic accountant to track every penny. And then we're going to take him for everything he's worth." "What about the business? Mitchell and Peterson Solutions?" Patricia's eyes gleamed. "You said you invested your inheritance, a premarital asset, into this business? $250,000. And you have documentation proving this? Signed contracts, bank transfers, everything. Then that business is at least 50% yours, arguably more. We'll be claiming your investment back with interest, plus compensation for fraud. If we can prove he misrepresented the business purpose to get your money, we might even get criminal charges involved." I felt something unfamiliar bubbling up inside me. It took me a moment to recognize it. Hope, mixed with a healthy dose of vindictive satisfaction. "One more thing," I said. "Can we make sure his employer knows about the fraud? He works for Davidson and Associates. They're very particular about ethical conduct." Patricia's smile turned predatory. "I think a formal disclosure to his HR department about potential financial misconduct might be appropriate, especially if it involves company resources or time." I left Patricia's office feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe years. Like I'd been carrying around a weight I didn't even know was there, and someone had finally cut it loose. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Next stop, Jasper's office. I still had keys to his building. He'd given them to me years ago in case of emergencies. Well, this qualified. I waited until lunch hour when I knew he'd be out, probably with Oakley, eating overpriced salads and planning their future with my money. I walked into Davidson and Associates like I owned the place, smiled at the receptionist, and went straight to Jasper's office. His assistant, a 20-something named Presley, who always looked at me with pity during company parties, glanced up. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Mitchell. Jasper's at lunch." "I know. I'm just dropping something off." I held up a manila folder. "Confidential documents. I'll just leave them on his desk." She nodded and went back to her computer. Too easy. Inside Jasper's office, I took my time. I photographed everything. His calendar, full of meetings that coincided with Oakley's Instagram posts from various romantic locations. His desk drawer, containing receipts from jewelry stores I'd never received gifts from. His file cabinet, with documents for Mitchell and Peterson Solutions showing distributions of my money to pay for everything from Oakley's apartment to a BMW I'd never seen. Then I did something petty. I switched his desktop background from the professional mountain landscape to the photo I'd taken at Marcello's. Him and Oakley, his hand on her face, looking like a romance novel cover. I set it as his screensaver, too. Let's see him explain that to his coworkers. I was leaving when I ran into Curtis Davidson himself, the founding partner. Gray-haired, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd built his career on integrity and reputation. "Luna, good to see you. How are the kids?" "They're great, Mr. Davidson. Growing too fast." I paused, as if something just occurred to me. "Actually, I wanted to thank you for being so understanding about Jasper's situation." He blinked. "Situation? Oh." I put my hand over my mouth. "I'm sorry. I assumed he'd told you. About the business venture. Mitchell and Peterson Solutions? I just want you to know that whatever time he's taken away from Davidson and Associates, we really appreciate your flexibility." Curtis's face went carefully blank. "I'm not aware of any outside business ventures. Jasper would need approval from the partnership committee for anything like that." "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. Please forget I mentioned it." I gave him my best worried wife face. "I don't want to cause problems." "Of course not. Don't worry about it, Luna." But I could see the wheels turning. Curtis Davidson didn't get where he was by ignoring red flags. By tomorrow, Jasper would be in a conference room explaining why he'd been running a side business without disclosure, possibly using company time and resources. I drove home humming to myself. The kids would be home in a few hours. I needed to act normal, make dinner, help with homework, pretend everything was fine. That night, Jasper came home at 9. He looked exhausted. Guilty exhausted. Not work exhausted. There's a difference. "Hey, babe," he said, kissing the top of my head like he'd done 1,000 times before. Like he wasn't planning to abandon me and our children for his pregnant mistress. "Sorry I'm so late. Crazy day." "I'm sure," I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was pretending to answer work emails. "How was lunch?" He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. "Fine. Just grab something at my desk. Sandwich from that deli on 3rd. Liar. I'd checked his credit card statement an hour ago. Lunch at Le Pigeon. $147. For 2. "That's nice," I said. "Hey, did you remember we have that thing with the mortgage company on Friday? The refinancing appointment?" His face lit up. "Yes. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. It's really going to help with our cash flow. Our cash flow. The audacity. I'm looking forward to it," I lied smoothly. "Really securing our future." He smiled and squeezed my shoulder. "That's my girl. Always thinking ahead." I waited until he went upstairs to shower. Then I texted Patricia. "Friday meeting is when he wants me to sign. How do we handle this?" Her response came back immediately. "Let him think you're going to sign. I'll have papers ready to serve him right after. Maximum impact. Friday. 3 days away. I could last 3 more days pretending to be the oblivious wife. 3 more days of smiling and nodding and acting like I didn't know my entire marriage was a fraud. Wednesday morning, Jasper got called into Curtis Davidson's office. He left the house pale and nervous. When he came home that night, He was sweating. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Yeah, just work stuff. Partnership politics." Thursday, Patricia called. The forensic accountant found something interesting. Your husband's been funneling money from Davidson and Associates client accounts into his personal business. Small amounts, covering them with creative bookkeeping. It's embezzlement, Luna. We're talking potential criminal charges. I sat down hard. He's been stealing from his firm? Looks like it. We have enough evidence to go to the DA if you want, but I'd suggest using it as leverage in the divorce instead. Criminal charges could tie up assets in legal proceedings for years. Better to get what's yours now and let his firm deal with him separately. What do I do? Come to my office tomorrow morning, before your mortgage appointment. We'll finalize everything. Then serve him immediately after he realizes you're not signing. Friday morning, I dropped the kids at school and told them I loved them extra tight. Leo squirmed away. 10-year-old boys don't like mom hugs in public. But Ruby hugged me back. "You okay, Mommy?" "I'm perfect, baby. See you tonight." I met Patricia at 9. By 10:30, I'd signed divorce papers, asset protection orders, and given her permission to contact both Davidson and Associates and the Oregon State Bar about Jasper's conduct. "One last thing," she said. "Where's the mortgage appointment?" "First National Bank, downtown branch, noon." She smiled. "Perfect. I'll have a process server meet you there. The moment he realizes you're not signing those refinancing papers, he'll be served with divorce papers instead. In front of the bank officer, in front of witnesses. Is that cruel? Honey, cruel is stealing your inheritance and getting another woman pregnant while you raise his children. This is just efficient." She was right. At 11:45, I walked into First National Bank. Jasper was already there, looking nervous but excited, probably mentally spending all the equity he thought he was about to steal. "Ready to secure our future?" he asked, smiling. I smiled back. "Absolutely. Let's do this." The bank officer, a middle-aged woman named Sharon with sensible glasses and a nameplate that read, "Senior Loan Specialist," smiled at us warmly as we sat down in her office. She had no idea she was about to witness the most spectacular implosion of a marriage her Friday had ever seen. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, wonderful to see you both. I have all your refinancing documents ready. This should be quick and painless." She slid a stack of papers across her desk. "As we discussed, this will transfer the deed entirely into your name, Mr. Mitchell, which will simplify the tax situation and improve your refinancing terms." Jasper nodded eagerly, already reaching for a pen. "Exactly what we need." Sharon turned to me. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'll need your signature on pages 4, 7, 12, and 15. There are little sticky tabs marking each spot." I picked up the papers, looked at them, looked at Jasper, who was practically vibrating with anticipation. "Actually," I said slowly, "I have some questions." Jasper's smile tightened. "Honey, we've been over this. It's just paperwork. Financial strategy, remember?" "Right. Financial strategy." I turned to Sharon. "If I sign this, what exactly am I signing away?" Sharon blinked, glancing between us. "Well, you'd be removing your name from the deed. The house would be solely in your husband's name. But you'd still live there, of course. You're married. And if we got divorced?" The room went very, very quiet. "Luna," Jasper said, his voice strained. "What are you talking about?" "Just a hypothetical question." I kept my eyes on Sharon. "If we divorced after I signed this, what would happen to the house?" Sharon looked uncomfortable. "Well, in that case, since the house would be in Mr. Mitchell's name alone, it would be considered his separate property. You would have no claim to it in a divorce settlement." "Interesting." I set the papers down. "And what about the $250,000 of my inheritance money that was used for the down payment 7 years ago?" Jasper went pale. "Luna, would I have any claim to that investment if the house was solely in his name?" Sharon was looking at Jasper now, a slight frown creasing her forehead. "That would be complicated. Premarital assets can sometimes be claimed, but if you sign over the deed now, you'd be essentially gifting your equity share to your husband. It would be very difficult to recover." "That's what I thought." I stood up. "I'm not signing." "Luna," Jasper's voice had an edge now. "Can we talk about this outside? No need. I picked up my purse. I'm not signing away my house, or my investment, or anything else. Your house? He stood up too, his face flushing red. I'm the one who's been making the mortgage payments while you work part-time. Part-time? I laughed. I work 45 hours a week, Jasper. I make $70,000 a year, and I've been contributing to this mortgage since day one. Sharon was very deliberately looking at her computer screen, pretending she couldn't hear us. This is ridiculous, Jasper hissed. You're being paranoid and emotional. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. Is it paranoid to wonder why my husband needs secret meetings at Marcello's? I turned the screen toward him, his face on the display, his hand on Oakley's cheek. He went from red to white in about 2 seconds. Or maybe I'm being emotional about finding out my husband has been running a business with his ex-fiancée using my inheritance money? I swiped to the next photo, a screenshot of the Mitchell and Peterson Solutions bank statements. Or discovering that his work trips were actually romantic getaways to San Francisco and Austin. Luna, let me explain. Oh, I'm sure there's a fascinating explanation for how Oakley Peterson is 5 months pregnant with your baby while we're still married. Sharon gasped. She couldn't help it. Jasper looked like he was going to be sick. How did I find out? Really? That's your question? I was shaking now, but not with sadness. With pure, crystallized rage. You left your iPad synced to your phone, genius. Every text message, every email, every I love you and can't wait to start our life together. Mrs. Mitchell, Sharon said quietly, perhaps you should. The door to her office opened. A woman in a business suit walked in holding a manila envelope. Jasper Mitchell? She asked. Not now, Jasper snapped. I'm a process server. You've been served. She handed him the envelope and walked out. Jasper stared at it like it was a bomb. What is this? Open it and see. His hands shook as he tore it open. I watched his face as he read. Watched him go through denial, confusion, horror, and finally, panic. Divorce papers, he whispered. You're filing for divorce. Very observant. I can see why they made you senior associate. Luna, wait. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Fix this? I grabbed the papers from his hands and read out loud. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Request for emergency injunction freezing all joint assets. Demand for forensic accounting of all marital finances. Motion to claim ownership interest in Mitchell and Peterson Solutions. I looked up at him. Should I continue? There's a whole section about the embezzlement from Davidson and Associates. His face went gray. You wouldn't. I already did. Patricia Caldwell is my attorney. You might have heard of her. She's the one who got Jennifer Morrison full custody and her ex-husband's boat collection. I picked up my purse. She's very excited about our case. Says it's the most clear-cut fraud she's seen in years. This is insane. You can't just... I can. I did. And Sharon? I turned to the bank officer, who looked like she wished she was anywhere else. I'll be refinancing in my name only once the divorce is finalized. I trust that won't be a problem? No, ma'am, she said faintly. I walked out of that bank with my head high and my hands steady. I got into my Honda CR-V, my car, paid for with my money, and drove exactly 3 blocks before I had to pull over because I was shaking so hard I couldn't see straight. But I wasn't crying. I was laughing. I called Patricia. It's done. How'd he take it? About as well as a man who just realized his entire plan collapsed can take it. He looked like he was going to pass out. Good. Now comes the fun part. We've already frozen the joint accounts as of this morning. He won't be able to access any marital funds. We've also filed a restraining order preventing him from selling or transferring any assets. And I just got off the phone with Curtis Davidson. And he's very interested in the evidence of embezzlement. Very interested. He's putting Jasper on immediate administrative leave pending an internal investigation. I closed my eyes. He's going to lose his job. He stole from his clients, Luna. He deserves to lose his job, and his license, and quite possibly his freedom if the DA decides to prosecute. She was right. I knew she was right. But there was still a tiny part of me, the part that had loved him once, the part that had believed in our marriage, that felt something like grief. What happens next? Now we wait. He'll contact you. He'll beg. He'll promise things. Don't engage. Don't answer his calls. Let everything go through me. She paused. How are you feeling? Honestly, terrified, relieved, angry, victorious, all at once. That's normal. You just blew up your entire life. But you blew it up on your terms, which is better than letting him do it on his. I drove home. Our home. My home. The house I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. The house where I'd brought my babies home from the hospital. The house where I'd built a life based on what I thought was a solid marriage. The house that was going to remain mine. I picked up Leo and Ruby from school. They chattered about their day, Leo's science project, Ruby's spelling test. Normal kid things. Beautiful, uncomplicated kid things. Where's Dad? Leo asked at dinner. He said he'd help me with my science project tonight. He has to work late, honey, but I can help you. You don't know about volcanoes. I know how to Google volcanoes, which is basically the same thing. Ruby giggled. Leo rolled his eyes but smiled. That night, after the kids were in bed, Jasper started calling. I let it go to voicemail. He called 17 times, left 12 voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. Luna, please, we need to talk. This is crazy. You're not thinking clearly. What about the kids? You're destroying our family. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. That witch lawyer is poisoning you against me. If you don't answer, I'm coming over. I texted him once. If you come to this house, I'll call the police. All communication goes through my attorney. Then I blocked his number. I poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive kind, because why the heck not, and sat on my couch in my house and thought about what came next. Jasper would fight. He'd get his own lawyer. He'd try to claim I was being unreasonable or emotional or vindictive. He'd probably try to use the kids as leverage. But I had evidence. Mountains of evidence. Evidence of theft, fraud, adultery, and embezzlement. Evidence that would hold up in any court in the country. And I had something else. Something he'd always underestimated. I had rage transformed into strategy. Heartbreak converted into action. Betrayal alchemized into power. I had 12 years of playing the supportive wife while he built his career. 12 years of putting his needs first. 12 years of being invisible in my own marriage. And now? Now I was the most visible person in his life. The one person standing between him and everything he wanted. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Oakley. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. The mistress wants to chat. Thoughts? Her response came back instantly. Block her. Let her stew. She's panicking because her meal ticket just disappeared. I blocked the number. Another text came through. Different number. Luna, please. I'm pregnant. I need Jasper. You're being selfish. I laughed out loud. Selfish. I was being selfish. The woman who stole my husband and my money was calling me selfish. I blocked that number too. Then I did something I hadn't done in 12 years. I called my college roommate Tegan, the one I'd drifted away from because Jasper always said she was too much drama. Luna, oh my gosh, it's been forever. Hey Tegan, are you free tomorrow? I need to tell you the most insane story of your life, and I need someone to drink wine with me who won't judge. Are you kidding? I'm free right now. Come over. Bring wine. Bring the story. Let's do this. For the first time in what felt like years, I smiled. A real smile. Not the fake one I'd been wearing for Jasper. Not the tired one I gave the kids when I was exhausted. A genuine, excited, about to spill all the tea smile. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Perfect. I'll order pizza, the good kind, not the healthy kind. I grabbed 2 bottles of wine, the expensive stuff from Jasper's special collection, and headed out. Because if there's one thing I'd learned this week, it's that revenge is a dish best served with good wine, great friends, and absolutely zero guilt about dismantling the life of the man who tried to dismantle yours. The gloves were off, the papers were filed, the accounts were frozen. And me? I was just getting started. Tegan's apartment was exactly what I needed. Messy, lived in, full of plants that were somehow thriving despite apparent neglect, and absolutely judgment-free. She opened the door in sweatpants and a college t-shirt, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Okay, wine first, story second, or story first, wine during. Wine during, definitely wine during. 2 hours later, I'd told her everything. Every sordid detail. The restaurant, the emails, the pregnancy, the stolen inheritance, the embezzlement, the divorce papers served in front of the bank officer. Tegan sat there with her mouth open, occasionally refilling our glasses. I need you to understand something, she said finally. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. And my sister married a guy who turned out to have 3 other wives in different states. Your sister wins. No, you win. Because you documented everything. You didn't just catch him, you built a case. You're like if Nancy Drew grew up and got really angry. She raised her glass. To Luna Mitchell, who doesn't get mad, she gets evidence. We clinked glasses. So what happens now? She asked. Now? Now it gets interesting. And it did. Monday morning, I got a call from Patricia. You're going to want to sit down for this. I'm already sitting. Davidson and Associates fired Jasper, effective immediately. They're also filing a civil suit against him for the embezzled funds. Roughly $80,000 they've traced so far. And they've reported him to the Oregon State Bar for ethics violations. I closed my eyes. $80,000. He'd stolen $80,000 from his own firm to fund his fantasy life with Oakley. There's more, Patricia continued. The forensic accountant finished the preliminary report. The business? Mitchell and Peterson Solutions? It's completely fake. No real clients. No actual revenue. Just a shell company used to funnel your inheritance money into personal expenses. Oakley's apartment, her car, vacations, furniture, clothing, everything. Can we get the money back? We're going to try. But here's the beautiful part. Since it was your premarital inheritance and he fraudulently misrepresented the investment, we can potentially recover the full amount plus damages. And since Oakley was a knowing participant in the fraud, she's liable too. She has to pay me back? If she has any assets, yes. We're going after both of them. I thought about Oakley in her waterfront apartment with her designer yoga pants and her BMW. The apartment and car that I'd unknowingly paid for. Go after everything, I said. Already on it. Oh, and one more thing. Jasper's trying to fight the asset freeze. His lawyer filed a motion claiming you're being vindictive and preventing him from accessing funds he needs to live. He has a job. Oh, wait. No, he doesn't. Patricia laughed. Exactly what I told the judge. Motion denied. The freeze stands until the divorce is finalized. That afternoon, I got an email from Curtis Davidson himself. Luna, I wanted to reach out personally to apologize. I had no idea Jasper was engaged in this kind of conduct. The firm takes ethics violations extremely seriously, and we're committed to making sure you're compensated for any losses that occurred due to his actions. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. Is this real? Or is he worried I'll sue the firm too? Her response. Both. But take it. Corporate guilt works in our favor. By Wednesday, things started moving fast. Jasper's lawyer, some guy named Barrett who had decent ratings but nothing compared to Patricia, reached out requesting a settlement conference. He wants to negotiate, Patricia told me over the phone. Which means he knows he has no case. What's he offering? 50-50 split of everything except the house. He gets the house, you get half the remaining marital assets and your inheritance investment back. Joint custody of the kids. I laughed so hard I snorted. He thinks he's getting my house? That's what I told him. Exact words were, my client would rather set fire to the house than let your client have it. Made him very uncomfortable. What do I actually want? The house. Full custody with his visitation contingent on him maintaining steady employment and housing. Your inheritance back in full with interest. Half of his remaining retirement accounts and savings. His portion of equity in the house. Alimony for 3 years while you stabilize post-divorce. And full child support based on his previous income, not his current unemployed status. Can we get all that? Honey, we can get more than that. But let's start here and see him squirm. Thursday brought the gift I didn't know I needed. An email from Oakley's lawyer. She was suing Jasper for breach of promise. Apparently, Jasper had promised to marry her as soon as the divorce was finalized, had promised to support her and the baby, had promised that the business would provide for their future. Now that she realized the business was fake, he was unemployed, and his assets were frozen, she wanted compensation. She was going after him for fraud, emotional distress, and palimony. She's suing him, I told Tegan over the phone, cackling. The mistress is suing the cheater. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It gets better. She's claiming he defrauded her too, that he told her the money for the business was his money, not stolen from his wife. Is that true? Who knows? Who cares? They're eating each other alive and I'm just sitting here watching. Friday, exactly 1 week after I'd served Jasper the divorce papers, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Jasper. I know you blocked me. Please, we need to talk. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation. Oakley won't speak to me. I'm living in my brother's basement. Please give me another chance. Think about the kids. I stared at that message for a long time. Think about the kids. The kids he was willing to abandon for his pregnant mistress. The kids whose college fund he'd stolen to pay for romantic getaways. The kids he barely saw because he was too busy building a fantasy life with another woman. I forwarded the message to Patricia. Can I respond? I asked. What do you want to say? The truth. Then say it. But keep it brief and don't engage in a conversation. I typed carefully. You didn't lose everything, Jasper. You threw it away. There's a difference. You made choices. Every single day for 8 months, you made choices. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to betray everyone who trusted you. These aren't consequences I'm imposing on you. These are consequences you earned. And as for the kids, I think about them every single day, which is why I'm making sure they grow up knowing that actions have consequences and that integrity matters, something you apparently never learned. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. His response came back in seconds. You're a cold, heartless woman. I gave you everything. I showed it to Patricia. Perfect, she said. He's emotional and defensive. His lawyer's going to love that. The following Tuesday, we had our settlement conference. Jasper looked terrible, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt, hollow eyes. He'd lost weight. He looked like a man who'd watched his entire life collapse in slow motion. Good. His lawyer, Barrett, was young and nervous. Patricia ate him alive. My client's position is clear, she said crisply. Full custody, the house, complete repayment of the inheritance with 8% interest, alimony, child support, half of all remaining marital assets and retirement accounts, and Mr. Mitchell pays all legal fees. That's outrageous, Barrett sputtered. You're trying to leave him with nothing. He left himself with nothing when he committed fraud and embezzlement. My client made mistakes. Your client committed crimes. Multiple crimes. If Mrs. Mitchell wanted to be vindictive, she'd have pressed criminal charges. Instead, she's being remarkably generous by simply asking for what's rightfully hers. Jasper leaned forward. Luna, please, be reasonable. I looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd built a life with. This man who'd destroyed everything we had without a second thought. I'm being perfectly reasonable, I said quietly. You stole $250,000 of my inheritance. You stole from your employer. You committed adultery. You were planning to take my house and leave me with nothing. And now you want me to be reasonable? I made mistakes. You made choices. Own them. The mediation went nowhere. Jasper's lawyer kept trying to negotiate down. Patricia kept holding firm, and eventually we agreed to let a judge decide. Litigation it is, Patricia said cheerfully as we left. Which means discovery, which means depositions, which means every sordid detail of his affair and fraud becomes part of the public record. His lawyer knows this. Give it a week. He'll settle. She was right. 5 days later, Barrett called with a new offer. Jasper would concede on everything: the house, custody, inheritance repayment, alimony, child support, if Luna would agree to seal the court records and not pursue criminal charges. He's protecting his reputation, Patricia explained. What's left of it anyway? If this goes to trial, every lawyer in Oregon will know he's a thief and an adulterer. He'll never work in law-adjacent fields again. What do you think I should do? What do you want to do? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I want my kids to have a father who's not in prison. I want my money back. I want my house. I want to move on with my life. I paused. But I want him to know, every single day for the rest of his life, that he lost everything because of his own choices. We can make that happen. We settled. I got everything. The house. Full custody with Jasper getting supervised visitation every other weekend. Supervised because of his currently unstable living situation. My inheritance back in full with interest. $274,000. 3 years of alimony at $3,500 a month. Child support of $2,000 a month. Half his retirement accounts. And he paid all legal fees, mine and his. The records were sealed. I didn't pursue criminal charges. But I did make sure that every parent at Leo and Ruby's school knew exactly why Jasper Mitchell no longer showed up to soccer games or school events. I didn't have to say much. Just a carefully worded comment to the right person at pickup. Oh, we're divorced now. Turns out he was living a double life with his ex-fiancée. These things happen. Suburban gossip networks are more efficient than the internet. Within a week, everyone knew. Within 2 weeks, Jasper's mother called me crying, apologizing for her son, begging me to let her still see the grandkids. Of course, I told her. You didn't do anything wrong. The kids love you. She sobbed harder. He's my son, but what he did to you, I'm so ashamed. As for Oakley, her lawsuit against Jasper went nowhere. You can't get money from someone who has nothing. Last I heard, she'd moved back to Idaho to live with her parents. She had the baby, a boy, in March. Jasper sees him occasionally, when he can afford the bus ticket. He never did find another job in law. Turns out being disbarred for ethics violations makes you unemployable in legal fields. Last I heard from Leo, his dad was working retail at a Home Depot in Beaverton, living with his brother and driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic. The Tesla was repossessed. And me? I'm still in my house. My house. The kids are thriving. Ruby's in gymnastics now. Leo made the travel soccer team. I got promoted at work. Turns out I'm a lot more productive when I'm not being emotionally drained by a lying husband. I repainted the bedroom. Got rid of all Jasper's stuff. Redecorated with things I actually liked instead of the neutral colors he'd always insisted on. I even went on a date. Nothing serious, but it was nice to have someone look at me like I was interesting instead of invisible. The house feels lighter somehow. Happier. Like it knows it's free too. So here's what nobody tells you about watching your life implode and then rebuilding it from scratch. It's exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in my backyard. The one I'd almost lost. The one that was now completely, legally, irrevocably mine. Watching Leo and Ruby chase each other around with water guns. It was a Saturday in August. One of those perfect Portland summer days where the sun actually shows up and the temperature hits 75 degrees and everyone acts like it's a national holiday. Tegan was there too, sprawled in a lawn chair with a glass of lemonade, watching the kids with amusement. You know what's wild? She said. 6 months ago, you were married to a man who was systematically destroying your life. And now look at you. New haircut, new promotion, actually smiling. The haircut was necessary. I needed to stop looking like a suburban mom who'd given up. You never gave up. You just redirected your energy from keeping a marriage alive to burning it down. I laughed. She wasn't wrong. The thing about betrayal, real, deep, systematic betrayal, is that it clarifies everything. When Jasper was stealing my inheritance and building a secret life with his ex-fiancée, I'd been busy being the perfect wife, the supportive partner, the understanding spouse who didn't complain when he worked late or took weekend trips or seemed distant and distracted. I'd been so focused on holding everything together that I didn't notice I was the only one holding anything. And when it all fell apart, when I finally let go and watched the whole structure collapse, that's when I realized how much lighter I felt without it. Leo ran over, dripping wet and grinning. Mom, can we get pizza for dinner? Sure, buddy. Can it be the good kind? With extra cheese? The good kind with extra cheese, Got it. He ran off, satisfied. Ruby followed, shouting something about pepperoni. They seem okay, Tegan observed, all things considered. They are okay. Better than okay, actually. I took a sip of my lemonade. Their therapist says they're processing everything really well. They miss their dad, but they're not traumatized. Kids are resilient like that. And Jasper? Still doing the Home Depot thing? Last I heard, Leo mentioned he got promoted to department supervisor, which is something, I guess. I shrugged. He sees them every other weekend, takes them to the park or the movies, tries to be present for what he can afford. Do you feel bad for him? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I feel bad that my kids don't have the father they deserve. I feel bad that they had to learn at ages 7 and 10 that people you love can lie to you. But Jasper himself? No. He made his choices. He lives with them. That's very mature of you. Maturity is just exhaustion disguised as wisdom. She snorted. Put that on a throw pillow. The truth was more complicated than that, of course. Some days I was angry. Some days I mourned the life I'd thought I had. Some days I looked at old photos, back when we were young and in love, and I genuinely believed we'd grow old together, and felt something that wasn't quite sadness but wasn't quite relief either. Mostly, though, I felt free. Free from the constant low-level anxiety of knowing something was wrong, but not being able to name it. Free from the exhaustion of trying to fix a marriage that one person had already abandoned. Free from the humiliation of being the last person to know I'd been replaced. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Inheritance payment cleared. Check your account. $274,000. Back where it belonged. I'd already decided what to do with it. Half would go into college funds for Leo and Ruby. Real protected college funds that only I controlled. A quarter would go into retirement investments. The rest? A vacation fund. Because if this whole nightmare had taught me anything, it was that life is short and saving everything for someday is how you wake up one day and realize someday never came. Good news? Tegan asked, watching my face. The best. The money's back. What are you going to do with it? Not give it to a lying husband, for starters. We both laughed. That evening, after Tegan left and the kids were in bed, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine, the expensive kind, because I'd learned to stop saving things for special occasions, and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd been married, stable, settled, living what I thought was a good life. Now I was divorced, single mom, starting over at 38, and somehow, impossibly, I was happier. Not because the divorce was fun. It wasn't. Not because being a single parent was easy. It isn't. Not because I enjoyed watching my ex-husband's life fall apart. Okay, maybe I enjoyed that a little bit. But because I'd learned something crucial. You can't build a life on lies. You can't love someone who doesn't respect you. And you can't save a marriage that only one person is actually in. I'd spent 12 years trying to be enough. Trying to be the perfect wife, the understanding partner, the woman who didn't make waves or demand too much or expect basic decency. Turns out, I'd been enough the whole time. Jasper was just looking for something I could never give him. Permission to be mediocre and selfish without consequences. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. This is Jasper. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better. I stared at that message for a long moment. Then I deleted it without responding. Because here's the thing about apologies that come after you've lost everything. They're not about making things right. They're about making the apologizer feel better. And I wasn't interested in making Jasper feel better about his choices anymore. I had Leo's soccer schedule to manage, Ruby's gymnastics competitions to attend, a promotion at work that meant more responsibility and more money, a house to maintain, a life to build. I had friends I'd reconnected with, like Tegan, who I'd pushed away because Jasper thought she was too dramatic. I had hobbies I'd abandoned because they seemed frivolous. I had dreams I'd deferred because they weren't practical. I had myself back. The version of me that existed before I started shrinking to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. And that version? She was pretty incredible. Ruby wandered out onto the porch in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Mom, can't sleep. Come here, baby." She climbed into my lap, still small enough to fit, though not for much longer. I wrapped my arms around her and we sat there quietly, watching the stars come out over Portland. "Mom?" she said after a while. "Yeah? Are you happy?" Such a simple question, such a complicated answer. "Yeah, baby, I am." "Good, me too." And there it was, the only validation I needed. Not revenge, though that had been satisfying. Not money, though getting my inheritance back was crucial. Not even justice, though watching Jasper face consequences had been necessary. Just this, my daughter in my arms, my son sleeping safely upstairs, my house around us, my life, messy and imperfect and complicated and entirely, completely mine. "Let's get you back to bed," I said, standing up with Ruby still in my arms. "Can you tell me a story?" "What kind of story?" "A happy one." I smiled. "I know just the one. Once upon a time, there was a woman who thought she'd lost everything. But it turned out, she'd just lost the things that were weighing her down." "Is it a true story?" "The truest kind." I tucked Ruby back into bed, kissed her forehead, and closed the door softly behind me. Then I went back downstairs to my house, poured myself another glass of expensive wine, and made a mental note to book that vacation to the Amalfi Coast I'd been dreaming about for years. Because if there's one thing I learned from having my entire life destroyed and rebuilt, it's this: don't wait for permission to be happy. Don't save your good wine for special occasions. Don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. And never, ever underestimate a woman who's learned that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Jasper could have his retail job and his brother's basement and his regrets. I had everything that mattered. And that, as they say in those feel-good movies I used to watch while Jasper was out with his mistress, was enough.